Shadows whisper when the lights go dim, cold breath crawling on my skin, voices echo from the other side. Is it real or just my mind? Things paranormal talks in the dark, secrets buried leave a burning mark. We interview the dead, we debate the unknown, chasing shadows where the seeds are sown. Fingers tapping on a Ouija board, broken silence like a shattered chord, eerie hums in the dead of night. Is it true?
Good evening.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. As you all see, we have Adam Kimmell, and he's owner of 2 properties, and we will be talking about that later on. And they promised us a real good life this time, so if we are nervous, don't be mad at us. I hope everyone in the comments will put in some great questions. But first things first, Adam, for our Spotify guest, do you want to introduce yourself and what you're doing?
Absolutely. So I've been investigating the paranormal for about 15 years now. I started back in 2010, actively investigating like all of us. And about 6 years into that adventure, I would take it a little bit farther and I would purchase the Madison Seminary located in Madison, Ohio. It is heavily traveled. Almost every team I know has been there and investigated it, which gets into our stuff later, which is going to be very interesting. About 4 years later, while I continued investigating the paranormal and traveling abroad, I would then purchase the Fairfield County Infirmary, which I am at right now as we're broadcasting. I'm in the White House. It's an old superintendent's house attached to the property. And I bought that in 2020. And it's about 196 years old. That's right before I jumped on the live. All morning I've been working on pipes, fixing things. Old buildings require a lot of love. So I was doing that. And so I've had, the infirmary since 2020, Madison since 2016. We have held major events every year. We do a Paracon at each property. Madison Seminary has MadCon. We do that every year. The paranormal community comes together. We raise money for cystic fibrosis. And just this last year prior, we got to the $60,000 mark of money raised for cystic fibrosis research. It's pretty impressive. And that goes to show how capable the paranormal community is. You know, when we all come together, because that's all it is, a bunch of enthusiasts all together for a common cause. So that's beautiful there. We have the FCI Con, which we host at Fairfield County Infirmary, and we raise money for the building because it definitely needs it. It's in not such good shape like Madison Seminary. So we've been raising money through doing events through that. We also help run the Indiana State Sanatorium, and we help partnership with them in about 2021. That is located in Rockville, Indiana. Massive. We call it the Disneyland of the paranormal. It's big. It's an old tuberculosis hospital originally. We also operate Billy Creek Village, which is about 5 minutes from that. It's an awesome historical village, also open for paranormal investigating. And the Stark Saloon in Rosedale, which is an old saloon. So it's quite the operation. But as you know, when you love it, and you're all in. You're married to the game.
Yes, you are. But how on earth would you think of it, buying a property?
It's wild. We were just talking about this. I had a crew come out to film a documentary, and they asked me that question. They said, why did this happen? And I grew up in Grove City, Pennsylvania. It's about an hour 20 from Madison, Ohio. So when I first started investigating, Madison was easy to get to. So I had investigated the Madison Seminary in 2010, 2014, and then my third investigation in 2016. As you know, Jeff Fent, he was there. he can vouch for this. Halfway through the investigation, I must have turned into a werewolf, and I said to him, I want to buy this place. And he's like, Adam, that's crazy. And I'm like, no, Jeff, it's not. Well, like, it's all about timing and doorways, right? And it just happened to be that the people who had it kind of wanted to sell because they were in the nursery business. If I wouldn't have stepped in when I did, they would have probably sold it to another bigger nursery business. Timing was perfect. The stars aligned, and I was able to seal a deal for the Madison Seminary, which created an entirely beautiful timeline that we're experiencing with meeting people, people getting to investigate further, study the paranormal. It's incredible.
Yeah. Now, I did hear someone telling me you do experiments in the medicine as well.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell more about that?
Well, it is very interesting when you have a location that's home field advantage, right? We can just, it's almost like your personal research center. You can just go over, it's a day that's not booked, and you have all the freedom in the world to experiment, take your time, because when you're investigating a location, you need multiple days, right? And the longer you have it, the more you can learn. For example, we created what we called the mirror room at Madison Seminary.
Yeah.
It is a cubed room. It's got mirrors everywhere. You kind of walk in, it looks like a closet. It's a 6x6x6 structure. It has mirrors all around, and it's just to experiment, because you've heard of there's a name for it. People have called it like a devil's toy box because of mirrors. And Jeff Fenton and I were talking one day. We're like, let's just build one to see upon science. Let's see what could happen if we do that. What is interesting is I believe people's personal psychology affects the way they investigate the paranormal.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to the mirror room. I always say, like, whatever energy you bring in is probably what you're going to communicate with. If you are having a bad day and you maybe are resonating a little bit of negative energy, it is possible if you're doing Estes in the mirror room, you may get more negative responses and energy like that. Or, it's just what people attract. If you got that good energy, yes. But it's very interesting because that could be anywhere in the building, but we always try to focus on the mirror room to see what happens. So that's one thing. You name it, we've tried it. We do another thing called Ripples in Time, where we recreate the past by dressing up to see if it stimulates the haunting, right? Mary, imagine if we had passed away, we've been at a building for 100 years, and they're like, hey, we know the spirits of Mary and Adam or Shane are here. Can you knock on the wall to tell us you're here? And I look over at you guys, I'm like, guys, I did that last night. Do you want to do it? Because I don't want to knock on the wall tonight. It's not getting us anywhere. But if they started playing music from our time period, they dress, because the dress 100 years from now, they're not going to look like us. They started dressing like us, acting like us, you might have our attention, and we may be more inclined to communicate with you. It's one theory. It sounds very simple. It could be something like that. And we've yielded some interesting results by doing that and stimulating the space through recreations of things.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it's also interesting to watch all the teams come through. I've come to the conclusion that at this point, these hauntings can speak if they want to. They've talked to so many people, and this goes for any location. They're intelligent enough to know to communicate, but the question is, why would they want to communicate? What are they going to get out of it? Is it just interacting with someone that's interesting? Someone that's actually asking great questions, not like, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite color? Like, we didn't pass away to answer these questions.
Yeah.
It comes down to something like that. Maybe they're intrigued by our energy, the way we vibrate, our frequency. I think we can tell even on our side, there are some people we meet and we're repelled by them. Like they're just not good people. You don't want to talk to them for a very long time. The quicker you can get away from them, the better. I think the spirits are like that too. They can feel that energy. If they want to speak to you, they will. If they want to talk to you because of that. That's one theory,
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
deep.
We've done on locations, we were talking about some history and things that happened. And during that time, a recorder would be taping, and you hear, yeah, on the background or answers on the background. So not addressing the spirits, but just talking to ourselves and keeping everything not too serious. So we laugh a lot, we make a lot of fun, and also then you get reactions enough.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There was another theory we had spoke about was mimics. Is that, do we really know what is haunting a location? When you go to the location, and I'll even say Madison Seminary is guilty, Fairfield County Infirmary, all of them are guilty. We only give you a very narrow bit of the history that we're even aware of. It's almost like if you had to write a book about your life, how much can you really write about that you really know? But there's only so much that's going to be documented. Even your carbon footprint, no one knows the real you. Therefore, we don't know the real use of a property. You focus on, you go to a location, maybe they give you 10 people known within its history in a very small pigeonhole of information. How do we even know that any of those figures are haunting the location? And how do we not know that it's just spirits that are there that have given up, that are like, hey, they're looking for a Mr. Williams. He's not here, but every night they come in looking for it. So you know what? I'll be Mr. Williams.
Yeah.
There's no receipt to an EVP. We can say whatever. We could pass away and Shane and I are haunting the same location. Well, Shane's not there that night. I could say I'm Shane, and the recorder will just hear, I am Shane. How do you double check an EVP? You know?
Yeah. True.
Not.
And I think it's so funny. And I always tell teams this when I say that, the saying, there's no receipt to an EVP. It's funny how we don't trust the living. We're always double checking. We're like, I wonder if that person's lying or not. But in the paranormal, it's almost like every EVP is truth, right? And it's like, whoa, wait a second, right? Maybe it could be lying to us.
Yeah.
You know.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. I question always some programs I've seen, and they've got an EVP. I'm a demon. Yeah, right.
Yes. Right. It's
Yeah.
I think if we wanted to scare a team out, let's say we're haunting the location and we're just annoyed, we hate their energy, why not say it? Because most teams get terrified by that, they'll run. You know, I am Lucifer, I am a demon. Yeah, you know what I mean? So, Jeff Fence here, but that's who I was talking about. There's the man.
Now we have to talk Dutch because he will hear us talking about.
Oh yeah, we got to be cool now. We got to be cool. We can't. You know. But it's fascinating. All these things are fascinating with the dynamics. I think what got me into a little bit of trouble with the mainstream is being an owner, you run across the mainstream. And I'll tell you what, I had a very bad experience when we filmed with Ghost Hunters. They did a reboot, right? And Grant Wilson was there. And I've told this story many times. And it was intriguing to me that I think that the underground has more thinkers than the mainstream, because a mainstream television show wants it black and white. They want to make it very simple for a mass amount of viewers. Hey, up on that second floor is a spirit named Mary, and we've seen her in a white dress, and she comes out at 3 a.m, right? Well, to someone who's not a ghost hunter, they're like, okay, so if they catch something tonight out of this entire building, it must be Mary, because it's so simple for the majority to understand. And before they filmed, Grant and I were sitting outside, and he goes, what do you think's haunting your building here? And I said, I don't know. Well, that opened a can of worms, because he looks at me and goes, what owner doesn't know what's haunting their building? And I'm like, things change. And this gets into the argument of foreign and domestic haunting. And I said this to him. I said, this place, I guess when every team comes, they're like, oh, when we come through, you'll get all this business. Like, we're booked constantly. Like, we don't need a TV show. The underground is much bigger than you think it is. But so there's teams in every night. And I was explaining this, that how do we know that you don't have attachments coming in with teams that follow that team from another location. They come to Madison and they're like, whoa, I like this place. I like this. I could stay here for a little bit. They stay at the location, team leaves, and now we got a new resident that is now a foreign haunting. So it is very hard to gauge what is in the building. It's going to change all the time. It is possible that some of the domestic haunting is still there, but it is very likely that we're dealing with a foreign haunting that hears the cheat sheet every day. When Shelly walks through, she's our tour guide in Madison. When she gives the tour, she's telling these foreign spirits what we think is there, right? And in this room, we have a Blanche Jacobs that is a double homicide murderer. You've got Elizabeth Stiles, famous Civil War spy that worked directly with Abraham Lincoln. Well, they're getting the notes, and they're like, oh, I'll be Elizabeth tonight. I'll be Elizabeth. That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
You know? So you have to think of those things. But what throws the wrench in that is, how do you explain that in a 42-minute episode to the mainstream public that does not ghost hunt? It's not going to work. It's too complicated.
Definitely is, yeah.
Yeah, but it makes sense because you hear a lot about investigators who didn't close up the investigation proper and take something home. So you bring something to your own place. So it makes sense. It hops from location to location.
And
Yeah, it
we
does make
made,
sense.
like Jeff had just said, we use the term tethering. It
Yeah.
may be like a video game with checkpoints, and I'm just making that analogy to make it make sense, is that if you were to go to a location, you know, some spirits want to stay there. Maybe they don't know how to leave. They always say, I'm trapped, I can't leave. Perhaps they can leave with you, but they're going to have to stay with you possibly to navigate. And when you bring them to another location, may it be your house or another location for paranormal research, they may decide to stay, and you may have led them there. There was no way to really tell them. Like if I had been to Madison and never to Fairfield, I couldn't tell a spirit, go to the Fairfield County Infirmary. I've never been there, but you should go there. It's really nice. I don't know if it's that easy for them to just leave and do that. Maybe it is, but
Yeah,
right now it looks like we may have to lead them.
it makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm always open. The theories can always change. I'm always open to new ideas. When something new comes to light, we alter our theories. Because, you know, this is the paranormal. It's like when you think you're figuring one thing out, 3 new problems arise, right?
Yeah.
But so I think one thing for people to take away on a haunting is, remember, the more it is investigated by the paranormal, it is contaminated. And this gets into, like I said, the foreign and domestic haunting. But there's also another issue. We are contaminating that location with our energy. And the question that raises is, when does a residual haunting begin? So, and for anyone listening, you know, you have an intelligent haunting where if you do an EVP recording, that's where you play you record on a recorder, you play it back. And let's say you say, can you tell me what my name is? And it comes back and it says Shane, Mary, Adam. That is something intelligent that was aware of our names and said it back to us. That's an intelligent haunting. A residual haunting is phantom footsteps. You may be listening somewhere and you hear phantom footsteps like they're walking down the hallway. That doesn't necessarily mean there's an intelligent spirit. It could be if we further looked into it, or it could be energy trapped in time from someone traveling up the stairs, things like that. But the question is, 100 years from now, with Madison and Fairfield and paranormal research continues, how much of our energy is now stained there, you know, where all locations are foreign hauntings that have just come there because there is no domestic because no one's passed away, or they're catching the residuals of ghost hunters doing EVP sessions, screaming because something scared them, you know what I mean? Or saying hello with a question mark because they thought they heard something, right? That becomes a very deep question.
Mm-hmm. It sounds so logic if you think about it. Because you can manifest a lot of things in your house, for instance, as well. And that's all
Yeah.
because of energy. So it
Yeah.
could be some residual energy.
Yeah.
Oh, it's almost like I've heard the saying, like everything's haunted. There's no safe places.
No.
Even if you were to build a brand new house, you got to think there could be hauntings within the area that if you're trying to summon them, I call it like open mic night. If you did a bunch of EVP recordings in your house, you will get something's attention at some point. That it could be from the house next door. It could be something attached to the land. It's fascinating, but yeah.
It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely is.
But
I
these are the,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Go on. No, go on. I
I
will.
was just saying, these, like Jeff Fenn, my whole crew, these are the things we talk about because, and it's why I enjoy talking to intellectuals like yourselves. The underground is actually asking these hard questions because the paranormal is much more complex. Now, it is logical. Like we said, what we're saying, it's just logical observation. We know that you cannot create or destroy energy, law of conservation. So there has to be a conversion of energy. We can prove all that stuff. Like there has to be something to that. So they are here as a form of energy. But how is it moving on? And this gets into the how long does a haunting even last? Sometimes I wonder if it's like a DVR recorder. Like, you get like a SATA drive that records security cameras, right? And let's say it only has a 72-hour cycle. And at the 72nd hour, it recycles to record the newest hour. But you can only go back 72 hours. The question that has always baffled me is, does a haunting, can we communicate back 100 years, possibly 150? Where does it cut off where we can no longer communicate with that because it has converted? Perhaps the energy has converted to something else, reincarnation. At some point, these spirits reincarnate. Or there is something they go to beyond this, where they're just no longer here. The energy wasn't destroyed. It's just moved on to another conversion. I don't have the answer to that. It baffles me.
Yeah.
Reminds me of an investigation we had 3 weeks ago. And I did the Gansfield method. And I tried to get in contact with energies. But the only thing that happened was I got a trance and I saw pictures. I saw people, I described them, and they didn't talk. They didn't talk at all. They just showed me what happened to them. And at the end, there was a blast, and I was completely out of it. So I took the headphones off, but never talked. Never.
That's interesting. That would lead maybe into two things: psychic phenomena of telepathy, and we know that I've heard many reports of this, of spirits communicating in dreams to people, like it, or it's almost like when you're about to ask a question and you have it in your head, and all of a sudden your equipment answers it before you can ask the question. It's almost like they can hear your thoughts. Therefore, if they can hear your thoughts, they can communicate with you that way as well.
Yeah.
There is another theory that I really enjoy. It is stone tape theory, that the walls, the brick, the wood, the concrete, the stone is recording all of the energy around us. And that is something we can tap into. If that's a recorded thing in the walls, at the right moment, at the right time, you were able to receive that. It's just, it was showing you what was in that space. It's possible, and that could explain residual. The walls are trapping the energy. Now, here's a deep rabbit hole. When we talk about experiencing residual hauntings, is that exclusive to certain people? Therefore, like this, certain people's energy make the residual pop off. All three of us walk down a hallway, right? And let's say this was a controlled experiment. In some reality, we could do this where all of us walk down the same hallway at the same time, but it's by ourselves. Shane and I don't hear anything while we walk down the hallway. But Mary, you hear a disembodied voice, right?
Mhm.
Is it possible that it was your energy and vibration and frequency that allowed that residual to pop off to hear it? where our energy, Shane and I, were not vibrating at the right frequency. You know what I mean? And it almost sounds like all the evidence you experience is reserved for you. It was you at your frequency. It sounds crazy, but right?
No.
It doesn't.
Okay. I'm talking
It
to
sounds
friends.
so
I'm talking to
logic.
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. We lately we are working with frequencies. We're trying out some frequency music, to see what they react to. Depends
Yeah.
on the location, of course, but
I love that.
um,
Love that idea.
that's something. Yeah, my wife came up with it, and we were like, "Oh hell yeah, we're gonna try that,
Mm.
definitely."
Yes.
So what you're telling us right now, spot on.
Yeah, makes
This
sense.
is exactly how we think about it.
Yeah.
It's deep, and it's another complication of the paranormal is we there are so many hauntings within one place in time, right? You walk into a room, how many layers of a haunting are stacked there, right?
Yeah.
And I was noticing there was one night we were doing a public event, and we had a group of people. We were doing an Estes method, and I think there was maybe 10 people in the room, and we had 2 people under Estes, right? And when we were some of the group was just asking questions, and there's a very popular question: how many spirits are here with us? And it's a go-to question.
Yep.
Well, I was sitting back and observing this, and it was very fascinating because when that question was asked, there were multiple numbers being said. One would say 6, one would say 2, one would say, and there was like 4 or 5 different numbers said. And I thought for a second, everyone's getting frustrated, like, well, what is it? Is it 6 or is it 2? And they're trying to count everyone in the room. Are they counting us? And then I thought to myself, is it possible that our plane of existence can speak to multiple planes of existence? They can't hear each other, right? There's so many different hauntings in that room. Some that passed away, 50 years before the others did. They're sharing the same space and time, but they can't see each other, but they can all hear us. And that's why our equipment is getting conflicting answers. And that's why they're probably confused when we answer one plane of existence. We're like, okay, there's 6. And then you get an answer that says no. And it's like, what? I think that could explain the confusion when we get evidence,
Yep. Yeah. It makes me think about the movie Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were spot on with that. I swear to God,
Yes.
they were like, I watched that movie when I was, how old was I? I'm a horror fan, so I think I was 11 or something, 12.
Yeah.
Oh, it was yeah. I think that came out like, I remember I was young too.
In the
I know
90s,
90s, sometime
Yeah.
in the 90s, 97,
Yeah.
98. Yeah.
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Way before its time. Way before its time. Like, it was very intelligent.
But he also said they can't see each other. They don't know they exist.
Oh, that gave
And
me
that's
chills.
something
I forgot
that's
that part. Yeah.
it's something that stayed with me, and you're talking about it. And I was like, "Ooh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's something I believed from start." They don't.
Yeah.
Not all of them. There's some they can see each other, they can communicate with each other, but that's not all of them. Most of the times they
Right.
don't know they exist.
hmm The
So
most
that's plausible.
terrifying part in that movie is he going to his job every day,
Yep.
but he's dead. So how many spirits are going to work every day and are not aware they're deceased? So they're not
True.
going to answer.
Nope.
Yeah, that's funny. I think about that. You go to some locations and it's so classic. We have a maintenance man, Bob, that comes through and does it. Like, really, if I pass away, I'm not going to work. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Nope.
but there's some that use that. And I'm like, I really don't think Bob's coming here voluntarily. It could be that he is stuck in a loop where some of these spirits, that raises a very interesting thing. There's one thing we've always said is you never want to tell them that they're dead. Right? Communication gets very interesting when that happens. If you say, are you aware that you're dead? Communication starts getting real stagnant. And one theory is that they're not aware, and you just gave them some very groundbreaking information, and they're denying it. They're not going to believe you, and they're done talking, right?
Yeah.
Or, it just raises a lot of red flags. And I do believe there are probably some spirits that it's weird. Think of people that exist now that are perhaps a little antisocial. They don't talk to a lot of people. They're loners, right? Maybe they continue that behavior afterwards and it's just normal business, you know? It's a little bit, it can feel like a little bit of a stretch. I could see it as a possibility for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It
Yeah.
definitely
If
is.
you are an anti-person, you're not
Mhm.
going to talk to anyone.
Right.
You're
Right.
going to make sure you're out of the way. So I
Definitely.
can ask whatever I want, but he's
Mhm.
not going to ask me. No,
No,
never.
definitely not.
Yeah.
By the way, I
Is it,
saw a question of or something Jeff said. You should also discuss doppelgangers.
Yes, I have a
ooh,
question.
doppelgangers.
Yes.
It's a very interesting topic, and Jeff is a part of that topic.
Ah,
So, shortly after the purchase of the Madison Seminary in 2016, weird stuff was happening, and it hasn't happened in years. But between 2016 to 2018, and Jeff's word is good as gold in this game. If Jeff told me a ghost came up to him and shook his hand, well, guess what? They're shaking hands now, right? So
yeah.
at the seminary, there were multiple times. My manager Addie had seen me one night. This is one example. It was the middle of winter. I had a hazmat suit on, just for keeping warm and stuff. My baseball hat was on backwards. I had these boots on, Doc Marten boots, and I had went outside to work on something, and I actually got locked out. But at some point, she heard me and saw me come through. No, I'm sorry, she did not hear me. She watched me walk around the hallway into the kitchen. I was making no noise with my boots. I walked and I glided, and she actually tried to get my attention, and I didn't say anything. That whatever that was, which clearly said it was me, she could see everything, totally walked by and ignored her. So she's like, well, clearly Adam hates me. Why would you not react or anything?
Yeah.
And then I think it was like 20 minutes later, I come in from another spot and I'm all like frustrated, like, oh, I got locked out. And she's like, did you just come in? And I was like, yeah, I was outside working on this gas thing we had. And she's like, I saw you. You were in here. It's okay. It's interesting. It was the first account of this, but there was another time where I saw Jeff. There were nights Jeff would come to Madison. We'd spend the night there. We were working multiple days. And there was one morning where there's like a middle building that attaches to a hallway that gets you to the two big sections of the Madison Seminary. Well, I was in that middle hallway and I see Jeff walking on the Civil War wing. I can only see his upper body with the way the stairs are. He's holding a fent box and he's just walking. And I say, Jeff, and there's no response. So clearly Jeff hates me, right? That's how we say it. No response. They clearly hate you. So I was like, all right. I just thought he was on a mission. Didn't think anything of it. I turned towards the Ohio cottage in the opposite direction. And lo and behold, who comes walking down the stairs 2 minutes later from the upstairs? There's no way to be on both sides of this building. That's the main vein is that hallway. He wasn't wearing even the same stuff. He had like a jacket on, I think, with his jeans. When I saw him, he had like a gray sweatshirt on. It was weird. Now, where do we even begin with the topic of doppelgangers? Because most think that I've heard the theory that that's, never look a doppelganger in the eyes. It's demonic, all these things. Well, first off, anytime we've had this doppelganger stuff, they're not even looking at you. Like, it's not like you could get their attention if you wanted to. My personal theory is that we are seeing a rip in time of when I saw Jeff walking, for a moment, a fabric of time had connected. Like time is not linear. It's not like time keeps moving forward. It is very possible time is like a yarn ball and it's all wired and mangled up. And at some point the threads touch for a quick moment. And it is possible in that moment you're seeing something. It's the time periods cannot interact with each other. In that line where Jeff was walking, he never heard me say Jeff. He was just on his mission walking. And, I just happened to glance into that. Same thing when Addie saw me. But the weird thing was when Addie saw me, it was exactly what I was wearing that day. So it would have been very close in time of that happening. With Jeff, it was a whole different outfit, you know, and I know it was him carrying the fent box, his boots. That was him. So it is possible it's that. I've had crew that experience things that have terrified them with doppelgangers, where they're with somebody and then they know they're walking with them and then they're gone when they walk through a room. There was an incident of that. I was not there to witness it, but 3 of the crew saw it, and I could just tell from their eyes they were terrified, thinking they were following someone and they weren't there, like clear as day, you know. And then that person wasn't saying anything, holding up a flashlight away from them. They followed them. It was one of the other crew that's no longer with us. They moved away, but he was upstairs in another section. Now the question is, well, why was that happening? So one theory was that obviously we're imprinting our own energies into this building, and we're seeing that. Like Jeff said, I believe some of the buildings records you and plays that back. And it's very weird. It was in the beginning, and it made me feel good. Like most people may say it's a bad omen. You know why it made me feel good? Is I do believe that's a rip in time, and we're seeing possibly the future. It had to have been the future because we were just starting, and it made me feel good because I'm like, we won. We made this timeline. If this is the same timeline, but in the future, perhaps we won. We building. We're still here. You know, it sounds crazy, but that was one way to look at it. But yeah, it's fascinating. I don't know. There's so many different avenues with doppelgangers you can take.
Yeah, definitely. But what was your feeling when you saw Jeff walking in, when you just saw him on another stair?
Absolutely confused. When I saw Jeff, the doppelganger, I wasn't scared. You know what I mean? I thought it was him. And when I came around the corner, you know, you can only imagine O-face and Jeff, what? That's all I kept saying. What? That's crazy. I'm like, no, Jeff, you don't understand the gravity of the situation. I saw you over there carrying a vent box. What? No. Like, yes. You know.
I can hear him say it.
You can hear him right now saying it. That's the exact dialogue. What? No. Like, yes, Jeff. There's a rip in time, dude. There's a rip in time.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm thinking, have you ever experienced your voice being mimicked, or
Yes.
people hearing in one of the buildings?
Very frequently. Recently, I had some of the crew where they were investigating the building at Fairfield. I was in the White House, and they came out after and they go, "Did you come in the building at any time?" I'm like, "No, I really wasn't. I was working in the production room, working on stuff." And they're like, "We all heard your voice in the dungeon upstairs. We thought you came in," which valid, you know, I'm on the property, but I wasn't in the building. Jeff, on multiple occasions, when we're working on the building together, he'll hear me in a whole different spot and hear me saying his name, Jeff. You know, it's interesting. And I don't know if that is, well, and this gets into that argument. When does a haunting begin? Right? I said this to a couple once, and I said, imagine this. You think your house is haunted, but what if it's actually you? You and your significant have an argument in the kitchen. You're slamming stuff. You're banging the table. You take a cabinet and you slam it. You're yelling, right? It's like a Hulu documentary with the bad ending, right? It's that kind of fight, right? The next day, you're in the house and you're in a different room and you hear the cabinet slam, right? How do you know that wasn't you the day before putting that energy in? Because when does a residual begin? We don't know. So
No, exactly. That does give us something to think about.
Because that's, you know, if we're spending a lot of time in these buildings, we're not doing anything different than those that occupied it prior to us. They just, most of them just existed. Not everyone passed away in the building.
No, exactly.
Yeah, and they just existed. What you're doing in your houses right now, you are staining your energy into it. Owners in the future that come in might hear your voice, you know, might hear phantom walking through your stairs. Stairs always intrigue me because it's like a main vein, right? We hear a lot of that kind of stuff where it sounds like people are going up and down the stairs and no one's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
but it's a very heavily traveled spot. So if energy left a stained signature, the stairs would be lit up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's everyone's taken that way. And then
Yep.
the
True.
floors would have their, trails, but the stairs, very suspect.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Sounds so logic.
So much for us. Not
Yeah.
everyone agrees, because we hear a lot, and mainly here in Europe, they hear phantom footsteps, and they're jumping all over on it because it's haunted and it's intelligence, and they are going to move it. They don't quite understand what the difference is, and
Nope.
some of them uh, won't accept the explanation, like the odd thing, because you get discussion over discussion over discussion. But why do people think and keep thinking, if they hear noises, there's a intelligent spirit in the area?
Probably because mainstream television has ruined it. A lot of YouTubers have ruined it. I deal with this. I deal with a lot of people coming to the properties. I've had the highest of influencers, the lowest of people that are in the game. I've seen the entire spectrum, and they're all playing a factor when they are making videos. They are sometimes sending a false agenda for entertainment, and the science is kind of pushed to the side because, like you just said, not every noise is a ghost or even an intelligent ghost. It could be residual. But the problem is when you mix entertainment and science, entertainment will always take a front seat,
Yeah.
and it's a dilemma we have over here in the States. It's happening everywhere. You're going to get influencers over in the Netherlands doing it. And I understand it works. You're going to get, and this is why I'm not against them doing it, is because the more people we get interested in the field, regardless of the origins, because we all came here most likely from either growing up in a haunted house or either being introduced by a friend that did this stuff, or one of the most popular ways, you saw something on TV, you watched a show, and you were like, damn, that's cool. I want to try that, right? And the thing is, we all get into it, but the longer we stay, the more intellectual you become, where you start asking the deep questions. Like, I remember in the beginning, I was guilty of it too. I used to get excited about everything, every little thing. I was always hyped up that, like, you hear a reputation about a location. I remember the first time I went to the Bliska Axe murder house in Iowa. It's like the devil's timeshare, right? And I think I psychologically freaked myself out for a very mild night, right? And but I'm into it now, right? Like, it got me into it, watching these things, being interested. I was one EVP. One EVP got me into it. But the great thing is, the longer people are involved in this, we can educate them to ask rational questions, rational thought. Like what we're talking about now is, I believe, some of the top tier thinking in the field that progresses it. So it's okay. We've got all the new Gen Zers joining the game. We've got kids as young as 13 interested. It's okay. They're in the honeymoon stage. It's the honeymoon stage. Once that relaxes and they're in it longer, we'll get more thinkers. And I think that's what the field needs. We need more thinkers to solve this paranormal puzzle.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Definitely. I do have to say one thing about the younger ones. Do try to accept tips and tricks from the oldies.
Yes.
Because most of them just don't accept it. As soon as you say, well, might be a better idea to not see everything ghostly, just try to debunk some things. Doesn't mean you have to debunk everything, but try and do that. You get blocked.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, hell no. Click.
Yep.
What? Okay. Whatever.
And I understand. I get it. Like, when I first got into the paranormal, I wasn't monetizing videos really. I never thought you could make money off of it. You know, it was that hobby we just enjoyed to do. You film something, you were proud about what you put out. You wanted to share your investigation, right? Now, the way the world has moved towards it is these influencers make money through the monetization of their episode. That's why you're going to see a lot of the O faces on a thumbnail, right? Which is just like kind of silly when you see it. Although they understand the science that when someone's scrolling through YouTube and they're not advertising to ghost hunters, we're not going to watch it like my most terrifying night with a demon where I almost got possessed in the title, right? Like we're scrolling, we don't care. But we're only 5% of the market. They're looking for the 95 that are the ones that are, you know, Aunt Mary down the road and little Mary Jane here that are not paranormal investigators. That thumbnail is going to get their attention. And that's what you have to do. You have to get them through that. And then you hook them in with an immediate hook. And then they're given a ride the entire time, where it's a very slippery slope between entertainment and science, you know, but it's very, you get it. But I understand they're doing it because that's their financial survival. Every video, they've got to make money off of it. And sometimes those slow nights where nothing happens, the views are not going to come in. People want to see that shock. I get it. I'm with you. It's like, it's troublesome, but I understand why it's happening.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I do understand it in that regard. I mean, if you really want to make a living out of YouTube and being an influencer, I'm not even going to try. But if you are serious about doing paranormal investigations and want to show what you film, just accept some tips and tricks from people who do this a long time.
You're right. It's like two different leagues.
Yeah.
You've got the entertainment league and the serious league, and you're right. And once you're in this, I'm with you. In the serious league, we love trading ideas. And I think obviously we've been in it so long enough, we're mature. Like I love listening to everybody's ideas. I don't think anyone's right or wrong. I just love the collaboration because, you know, one idea you hear, you're like, whoa, wait a second. It could change your filter. And when I say filter, I have noticed that a lot of paranormal teams that come in have a very particular filter of how they see the paranormal. Yep. And I wasn't paying attention to this for like a decade. And I started reeling back and like watching how investigators investigate. Is that Irene?
Yep. Yes.
Irene from Japan?
Yes.
How have you been, lovely? I was on her podcast a little while ago. She is a beautiful soul. She is a beautiful soul.
Oh yeah, she definitely is.
Mm-hmm. But so you start looking at the filters. Okay, so let's say you have a team that's highly religious, extremely religious, right? That's your filter when you go in. Everything is a demon, everything is a curse, everything, you know what I mean? Then you have a team that is straight like science, where it's just hardcore science. Then you watch. The objective would be to keep your filter as wide as possible while conducting an investigation. And so I find it intriguing to listen to everybody because I'm learning a little bit about all of that. But I did notice that in the field, and that's kind of where you're getting at when you see people wanting to not maybe take advice. It's because their filter is too small, you know, of like what they're seeing. They're like, we have a set way. We do it this way. Thanks for your advice. But you know what I mean? It's like, you should take the advice. Just listen at least. Just listen.
At least, you know? Yeah. You don't have to do anything with it. Just listen to it and see whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah.
You don't have to block somebody for telling something.
That's
just bull.
Extreme. That's extreme. Yeah.
Yeah. It's teenagers most of the time who do that. And I'm like, I'm too old for this shit. I don't like this anymore.
Yeah, but I have a problem if people are demanding to act and work like they do. I'm not religious, and I'm not approaching it from religion, but as open-minded as possible. And if people are telling me you have to ask God and have to ask, then I have a problem because I black out.
Right. I understand. I
Yeah.
understand. It is interesting because that filter manipulates the investigation, right? Are you actually having a true investigation? So I'm not very religious. I was raised Roman Catholic. I know the whole spiel on demons. I can't confirm or deny the existence. I just think that if it is plausible and they exist, they are being misdiagnosed heavily by, this. I felt like I aged out when I said this. I had some young kids come up to me and they were like 17, 18, and they were talking about demons. And they asked me if demons exist and they were all scared. I said, no, I don't. I really don't think they exist. There could be a 0.05 probability, although we can't deny the existence, But I said, well, what about people like Charles Manson? And they stared at me blankly. And I was like, no, oh no. I was like, they were so young, they'd never heard of Charles Manson. And I was like, Jeffrey Dahmer, Jim Jones. And they're like, are they like, who are they? I'm like, oh no. But I was trying to give a correlation that evil people have existed among us. When they pass away, they keep that mentality and they are going to be very, very bad now that they're given a cloaking device. We can't see them. They can learn how to manipulate things. They could try to hurt us. And it will be misdiagnosed as a demon because the other thing is they have the advantage. What if you pass away and you realize it's not anything we've thought? But if you wanted to scare the living, you understand that many of them fear this stuff. And perhaps fear feeds the energy you need, right? It's almost like evil people love hurting people in real life.
Yeah.
They get off to that, right? Okay. Well, let's take that approach and assume that there are spirits, and we've heard this, that the more fear you project, they just eat it, right? So is it possible that you get those spirits that are trying to scare you through any means possible, trying to harm you because it is, I don't know what it does for them. It could, I don't know, but you get what I'm saying. They get something out of that. Maybe, obviously, we give off a certain vibration frequency when we are scared, right? We know from a study, there was a Japanese scientist, right? If Irene's here, she knows this. We spoke about this. There was a Japanese scientist who did an experiment that he went into two rooms. One room had water that was slowly freezing, and both of the rooms had that, right? And in the one room, he stared at that glass jar while it was freezing, and he just thought about the most kind, happiest thoughts that he could project at it. Like, I love you, you're the greatest, blah, 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 for hours. As the ice formed, it was just beautiful shapes. The symmetry was beautiful the way the ice froze. But then when he did the experiment to the other ice in that, he just thought about the most negative things, angry, negative. And if you've ever seen how a spider weaves a cobweb on LSD, how it's not like controlled at all, the water froze in a sporadic manner, which from this research, which would require further studying, but I think he's onto something, it would show that our emotions and what we project at people do affect them. Therefore, if you can get negative or fear off of somebody, it does something for you. Again, that's just a theory. I'm not saying it's a law, but it's something that I would lean towards, I think is happening.
Yeah. Well, same here.
Mm-hmm.
It now sounds like I agree with you on everything.
I don't know.
Jeff highly
It's not just for the show. I really do agree.
Yes, I do. In psychology, they say your environment is your projection of energy.
Yes.
So why doesn't it count for the spiritual world as well? So it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I think what happens is the paranormal, many individuals in the paranormal have created a fantasy, right? And they're almost throwing logic out. And we're just taking it from logical observation. It's very simple. Everything we're talking about is just observation, cause and effect. but it's almost like for some people, the paranormal has been romanticized into a certain kind of thing, right? Where it's a battle between good and evil and all these things. And when you have that kind of perversion of thinking into it, you get, you know what I mean? You start getting some weird theories. And that's okay. They're entitled to that, but it gets really, if people think I'm in left field, I will show you what left field looks like when you listen to some people that have romanticized it, and it's more of like almost like a fairy tale game, you know. But yeah,
Yeah. Oh my God.
you see, there's it's. I always try to be careful. It's a very fine line I have to walk because I own properties and I see teams, and there's always teams like, I watched your live the other day. Were you talking about us? I was like, no, it's just vague profiling of things I see. But people know it.
Problem. We have the same problem. Yeah. Because we've done enough interviews and we talked to a lot of people, worked with different teams, and
Yep.
some do think we talk about them, but we're just profiling.
It's just a vague profile.
Yes.
Not that bad.
It's interesting. And the one thing I've also learned is I cannot, and I would never do this, I can't be the jurisdiction of how teams investigate. So I have a stance on teams. I just don't believe in it. I mean, I don't, again, I explain what I think. It's a low probability. There are some owners that will tell people, when you come here, don't talk about demons. Don't do that. You know what I mean? Well, I even find that a little much of a stretch, because who am I to say your tactics aren't right and you can't do that in the building, right? The only thing I've ever limited is like maybe a blood ritual. Let's try to not off people or anything like that. You know what I mean? Nothing that would break the law, but I don't really have a restriction. Like, we allow Ouija boards, and some people are against it. I totally understand. I was at a location once, and they were doing this big speech before it was the public hunt back in 2010. And I just found it fascinating that they made this big speech about no Ouija boards in the building and none of that stuff. And I was like, interesting. What's the difference between a digital voice recorder and a Ouija board? Now, they don't want to hear that shit. No one wants to hear that shit, because it's like,
Nope.
don't you come to me with that intellectual stuff. Any tool you're using, you're putting your energy into it in a sense, right?
True.
So, I mean, the Ouija board isn't my go-to tool. I would prefer a Fent box or a digital voice recorder. But if someone preferred to speak, again, you're just communicating, that would actually say, oh, but if you use a Ouija board, you're only talking to demons. But if you use a digital voice recorder, you're speaking to the deceased that were once alive as humans. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we can't gatekeep. We can't gatekeep what is used and what can be done.
No.
Exactly.
And the paranormal isn't Hollywood, because the Hollywood movies didn't do much good for a lot.
Yes.
And the Catholic
Right.
Church as well, because necromancy was work of the devil. And it's implanted in our DNA. And not everyone is using their brain cells to see they have been manipulated to
You
believe
100%.
things. Yeah. And I might step on people's toes here in the Netherlands, but I'm known for it to speak out what I'm thinking and what we believe in. So yeah, Ouija boards, spirit boxes, voice recorders, all the same.
Yep.
You're exactly right. And here's the thing. When I first got into this, I wanted to save everybody. I wanted to sit down and be like, let's just talk it out. Let's talk like intellectuals. There are some people that cannot be saved, and they are very stuck in their ways. They've been, I love that you use the word manipulated. It is such a perfect word. When you look at pulp culture, and when you reference things like how Hollywood has portrayed the Ouija board and all that stuff. Okay, like, this is also made by Milton Bradley, if I'm correct. Milton Bradley's the creator of or like, they sell Ouija boards. They're also, they sell games like Battleship, but it's more of like what the Ouija board over time has been used for.
Yeah.
But if people took a moment to step back and realize you have been fed a narrative and you're allowing that narrative to influence your investigation, you know what I mean? No one's going to want to step back on that. I think some people are just so set in their ways. So I don't try to save people anymore. I'll do my best, but some people are too far gone. You know,
Yeah.
they believe what they want to believe, and they're gonna go down that way.
Exactly.
Absolutely
I have
agree.
an interesting question from Irene. Adam, what do you think about people going into places that's above their heads and go out and poke the bear? Because people who come here and go out and investigate where they could get hurt. I think where.
I think they need to learn. I was it's again Irene. I cannot give her enough positive shout outs. That raises a great statement and question, because I said this last night on my TikTok live before I got banned for being too real. But happens every Tuesday. I'm going light here. These are very nice words. TikTok censors very certain words when you're saying the truth. But I said one thing about demons. I said, for the people that actually believe in demons, why are you here then? Like, why are you here? Why would you dabble with that? I was watching a TikTok live, and these I really dislike TikTok lives and how these kids are doing it. And they're like, if you're a demon, make my REM pod go off. And then of course the REM pod just goes off, but it could have went off for any reason. And they're like, oh my God, did you see that? That's a demon. And guys, and they look right at the camera and they're like, fam, I just want to know that this is affecting me and my family, but we're doing this here for you. And I'm like, I really hope you levitate and get possessed. Like, I really do. Because what are you doing? Like, you don't believe in it. You're just, but what if? Like, you have to be careful, because there are things out there that I think can affect you. It may not be demonic, but the feelings, like how you had the projections of thoughts and things like that,
Yeah.
sometimes we'll leave locations. I just got back from Penhurst State School and Hospital out in Pennsylvania. And this is weird, because normally I think I'm shielded. I don't know. Like, I'm more grounded. This scared me because I woke up at like between 2 to 4 a.m. I popped up out of my bed. It was at the hotel. And I had the most miserable feeling of sadness, depression, and mainly hopelessness. And that's not me. That's a foreign thought. I don't normally think like that. And for 15 minutes, I sat on the bed and I'm just like analyzing this. Like, is this really my thought? Why am I thinking like this? But it was when I say the word hopelessness, it was like this feeling of just give up. And then I thought to myself, man, when you look up Penhurst State School and Hospital, these were kids that were left there and to be forgotten. They were chained to beds. And I'm like, is it possible that I'm feeling the emotion of that? But this is where it gets deeper. If that's happening at that level, worse things can happen, So the more you dabble with it, that could have been a residual stain that I carried with me for a moment. And I've not had that feeling since. And I don't think like that. So I'm thinking it was the night after. I was like, literally got done with the investigation. And I was sleeping. And it was like, whoa. These entities could follow you. And here's what you need to be careful about. This goes to these investigators that go out and do it. And Irene, this is going into your question. They're not going to do it to you on camera. They're not. They're going to follow you, and they're going to wait for your moment of weakness. So you're going to always have to have your guard up, because one day your shields are going to be down and you're having a naturally miserable day. And guess what? You will be under attack, and you'll never know, And this is living people do this all the time. There's people that just are bad, and they would stalk you maybe and follow you and wait. I think there are spirits that can do that too. So you really need to be careful, especially with provocation. If you're going to provoke, you don't know what's on the other side and what you may be sending out a signal to,
Exactly.
So to answer Irene's question, absolutely. I think, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You investigate for a long time now. what was your most frightening experience? I really want to know.
This is interesting. One incident happened at the old South Pittsburgh Hospital in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. And it was terrifying because I couldn't understand what the hell I was seeing. The two guys that I was with at the time, if you isolated us right now and hooked us up to a lie detector test, we're all going to tell you the same story, what we witnessed. This was that. Okay. It takes place back, I believe we were there in 2011 or 2012. Old South Pittsburgh Hospital is just an old hospital. On the third floor, there is a psychiatric ward. And at the end of the hallway, I believe a nurse had ended her own life in that room. I don't quote me the story, but there was, for some reason, we were fixated on the last room on the left. Something happened in that room. So before I had a lot of cameras, I only had like 3 cameras, and we did this thing where we had this girl with us. Her name was Jordan. She was always down to do crazy stuff. We duct taped her to a chair in that room with our only 3 cameras we had, multiple angles, and she was going to be doing a quarantine or a solo for 20 minutes there. And we're like, let's make it bait. Let's make it enticing. And this is when I was first getting into the game. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, let's just duct tape a girl to a chair. Someone's going to be interested and want to talk. Anyway, we go back down 2 floors below. I had no live streaming ability at the time, so we're just watching a clock, and we're like, we'll be back up in 20 minutes. We'll stop the recorders, and we'll download that stuff and see what happened. About 15 minutes in, we hear running on the floor above us. And we're like, oh my God, Jordan's taped to a chair running. She's scared, and she's running down the hallway. That's immediately thought it was that clear. So you appreciate it as a fellow dude. You're like, oh my God, I wish we had this on camera. So that's what I'm picturing. She's duct taped and she's running. And so we go up to we're like, oh, we got to go up. But we have no cameras, so this is for us personally to enjoy. We go up the stairs and we're looking on the first floor and we're like, she should be here if that was her. Interesting. So now we're getting to that real, like, we're trying to figure out like what we just heard. Maybe that was paranormal. It's not Jordan running. We go up to the next floor. There's nothing going on there. And I think we had to get to the third floor, which is the psychiatric floor. And it was very like, it had some dark history to it. As we start walking down that floor, the night vision is still on with one camera light. So you can see her room at the very end of this hallway is lit up. And she's calmly talking. She goes, okay, guys, just come get me. I see you. And we're like, what the shit is she talking about? So we're creeping down the hallway. And it's like a good 50, 60 feet of hallway, maybe even longer. And we're all 3 just slowly walking and listening. And she goes, come on, guys, I see you. Just come get me. And we're like, again, who's she talking to? Now, there's a little bit of an indent to this room. So the hallways are there, and then there's a little bit of an indent, and then it has a door. The doors aren't on the hallway, right? So there's like a little bit of an alcove. All of a sudden, this shadow figure pulls back out of that. I'm getting chills. I'm telling this story. Pulls back and is now standing. It looks like its silhouette's kind of looking in the room, like at her, but it's translucent. It's black with shimmering stuff in it. And we pause and we're just all like frozen. And I remember looking at the guys and they're just staring forward. And I said, what are we looking at? What is that? Now, at this point, we're maybe 30 feet away from this thing, 40 feet. A decent distance, but we see it. And Jordan goes, what I think is happening is Jordan sees this shadow figure, sees the shadow, thinks it's our head popping in to look at her. She has no idea that is not us. So this thing pulls back and we don't know what to do. We're like, man, we have no cameras, nothing on us. And we're just slowly tiptoeing in the hallway. Never since and before have I seen a shadow person not give a shit that it knows you're there. It's standing now in the hallway. It kind of pulls back and now it's upright. Perfect stance, arms to the side. And we're just like, what do you do in this situation? We keep slowly walking at it, right? Because we're dumb ghost hunters. And this is what was weird, is that at about 25 feet, this thing's just there. I'm trying. My eyes are like it's black. It's shimmering. You can kind of see through it, but you can see they're shimmering. All of a sudden, splits into two figures, like slide transition. Two figures are there, and then stuck in their shape, they slide to a room opposing where Jordan was at. I hooked me up to a lie detector. That is exactly what I saw, and I will tell that exactly the same way until the day I go. Now, there was something interesting. I told you that the physics, it looked like a cardboard cutout of a person, like stuck black, like their legs didn't move, it slid. 2 years ago at Madison Seminary, we were having a public ghost hunt. We were leaving Sarah's room. Sarah's room is a very popular haunting. Allegedly, a little girl haunts the room. We can go down that rabbit hole. That's not what I'm getting at. Is we were coming out of that room. I had about 10 guests with me. It was during a public ghost hunt. Friday the 13th, lightning is flashing outside. You couldn't ask for a better event. These guests could have just, they were having a blast because it just seemed scary. As we came around the corner to go down the stairs, there is an opposing hallway that goes to the left. And there was a kid behind me who was just asking a question about Sarah. So I turned my head to listen, and I'm looking forward as we're walking. Lightning flashes, and it lights the entire floor up like an old school, like a camera with the bulb. It's like, for 2 seconds or less, the entire floor is bright. And at the end of the hallway, there is a shadow figure leaning with its arm down. And it was pure black. It was blacker than the black. It looked fake, blacker than my shirt on right now. There, and for a fraction of a second, it's there, and it slides in its shape. It didn't do the physics of like a shoulder move in this. It was like it was stuck, and it slid. And immediately I was like, oh my God, that's what I saw at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital. It didn't move right. It slid like it was fake, where it's almost like the three-dimensional world is seeing the two-dimensional world, right?
Yeah.
And when I say scariest, it's just like, I don't know what I saw. I think it scares me because I don't understand. I'm not scared. Like, I'm scared because I don't understand. Like, what was that? And, that's all I can really leave it on. That's what terrifies me. It's not that we're going to get hurt. It's just like this thing, it's much more dynamic than we understand. And this gets into a deeper theory of like, are shadow people interdimensional beings? Are they time travelers? I mean, it would be very easy to manipulate the past and go to haunted locations where ghost hunters think you're a ghost. And even if you're detected, oh, it's okay, they think we're a ghost, and you just bob away. You know what I mean? Like, why are they always trying to get away from us? Wouldn't you think, like, except that thing at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, it moved away at a certain distance. But that was the first time I saw a shadow person that it didn't give a shit. It knew we saw it. It saw us. And it was probably there for a good 30 seconds. I would say a good 30 seconds before it moved. So, yeah.
Wow. Irene is putting some comments in. You should visit Japan, she's saying. And
She has told me.
afterwards, she will duct tape you in the cave.
Did I not tell you she was the sweetest soul you'll ever meet? She's very wholesome. She's very wholesome.
Yeah. She thinking the shadow figure could be a keeper of the dead. So, yeah.
I've heard a theory of that. Like, that there are certain spirits that are almost binding other spirits there. Every culture has a different name. We call them soul catchers here, soul collectors. It's interesting because it almost seems like in this field, you ask certain questions and you never get the answer. And it's like, are you not allowed to tell us something? And if so, who's telling you can't answer that question, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you hear EVPs. Don't tell them, don't tell them, don't tell them. And it got quiet. Yeah, so it's interesting. Jeff telling you to do so.
Jeff gaslights me all the time. He's gaslighting me right now. That's how I always get into trouble. Like, Jeff, let's make the Devil's Toy Box. Jeff, that's a great idea. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So he's a great instigator.
That's what you're friends for, right?
That's why we're friends. You get into a lot of trouble together.
Yeah, I'm making a patch vest like Nick Malay does. And I found a patch that says, that's a terrible idea. When do we start? I need that one.
I love it. We have to have a t-shirt like that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
They have them. I'll find them for you.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Irene is saying the cave she wants to duct tape you. It's a suicide cave.
Just don't tell Adam.
Just don't tell Adam, but you can also read the comments. So sorry, Irene.
You know what's interesting? When I was speaking with Irene, she taught me so much about the paranormal and Japanese culture. It was like I wasn't aware of it. That in Japan, the paranormal is like very forbidden, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kept saying like, no, I don't understand what you're saying. And there are people that can lose their jobs by doing this, you know? It's so taboo still. And I think it was like maybe last year, we had a Japanese YouTuber that came out to ISS. Did he come out for a week, Annie? 2 weeks. He came from Japan to film. And I was thinking about the conversation I had with Irene. I'm like, I don't know who it was, but he must have been a very well-known YouTuber. Like very famous in Japan. I'm like, he's taking a risk then. You know what I mean? But if you're a full-time influencer, you don't have to worry about your job. You're making money. It gets back into what we were saying. They're not bound by anything. He's making buku bucks doing this. But if you ever tried to get a job for real after this, they're going to look it up and be like, whoa, you know. So there was a lot to learn from what Irene had to share, culturally, spiritually, and that's talking around the world. I feel like we're neighbors. We're so similar with thoughts. Like I can't believe you're on the other side of the world and we are just thinking the same way. It's very, very cool.
Yeah,
it is definitely.
We have a comment from Noreen. My father, who was in his 80s, told me that 4 time bandits came and stood outside the hospital bay. They didn't speak to them. They just stood outside watching, and he was convinced. So that's also a nice theory about, I think, shadow figures. And Irene is saying, yeah, either you go to the loony bin or you keep quiet like her. I don't tell anyone what she's doing. That's a big difference. We can tell now we are in the paranormal and what we were doing. And the only thing, if you're telling you're on the road with an exorcist, they think you can predict when people are going to die. But for the rest, they take you a bit more serious. So, yeah.
The comment about time bandits.
Yeah.
Very fascinating. Okay. I believe in time travel. I believe it's possible, but it's weird because time isn't linear. But so, okay. I guess we are doing rabbit hole today. Back around World War II, we had the Philadelphia experiment. Are you guys familiar with the Philadelphia? Yes. So that was one of the times where the U.S. government, I think it leaked a little bit that they were looking into this. You had people like Einstein involved, Oppenheimer. I think you had some of Tesla's stuff involved. And the idea was to wrap, I can't remember the ship's name, the USS Eldridge with a bunch of copper. Like it was to wrap it up, and the Allies were trying to create a cloaking device. You can look this up if I'm getting it wrong here. It's the Philadelphia experiment. And they wrap this up and with copper, and they just charge it with a bunch of energy. The theory was that we could create a cloaking device to infiltrate Nazi bases and things like that undetected, get them kind of like a reverse blitzkrieg. The Germans had a thing called the blitzkrieg where they hit you very quickly and very fast. So the Allies' counteract was, well, we're going to get you. You're not going to see us coming. And we've got some of our greatest minds working on it. Fascinating. It's got my attention. I'm reading this. Well, the experiment went a little haywire to where not only did the ship cloak, it reappeared in a different harbor, it cloaked again, came back, disappeared, gone for a while, and then eventually was found in another harbor. Again, if you read the official story, I'm just giving you an idea of what's going on here. Allegedly, when they boarded the ship, some of the crew were aware of what happened, that they said they went, this happened in 1942, 41, 42, they did this. They claimed that they went to 1980 or 90. They brought back radioactive stuff back to their time period, back to 1942, from future Americans, which leads a very interesting question, which I'll get into. It's like, if you went to the future, what happened and why are you there? Did your technology bringing it back from the future affect the past to lead to a new future? Did they go to an America and a world where Germany had won and they found American resistance in that area? And they're like, hey, take this back. It'll sway the war. Anyway, I digress. They take that back. They speak to the crew. Some of the crew are aware. Some of the crew were stuck in bulkheads, like literally phased into bulkheads, where it was like everything as they traveled, things were moving through each other. And when it re-manifested, they were stuck, like literally fused together. Other crew members were deceased. Now, again, these are all alleged reports, allegedly declassified in some extent, but I don't know if we'll know the truth. I do believe that Oppenheimer, Einstein, and Tesla, and a few other culprits were dealing with time travel. I believe Tesla said everything is frequency and vibration, and that if you were to get the right frequency, I believe it was Tesla, you can unlock time travel.
That's definitely Tesla.
Is it Tesla? He said that. Yeah. And even some of the experiments he was doing way before his time. It's funny because when the FBI took his work in his hotel, there were, I don't know, it was an X amount of trunks, right? Let's say there was 86 trunks. When the trunks were returned to his family, there were only 80. And one of the stories was, well, maybe they just put them all, they piled them up a little more and they only needed to transport in 80 trunks. And there were just 6 they tossed away that were just empty. Or it is possible that an intelligence community such as the CIA or something took those 6 trunks that involve time travel and things like that and are experimenting with it. Yeah, it's a deep theory where I do believe it's possible. Yeah. I'm not sure. I wasn't prepared to talk about time travel. Trust me, we talk about this all the time. It's like, where do you go? There's so many avenues.
Yeah.
I guess my short answer is yes. I believe your grandpa did see something. Time travel is possible. It is very plausible he saw what he thought he saw.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And I'm going to be a party pooper, but our time is up. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart that you came on our podcast. If people want to follow you and learn more about what you're doing, where can they find you?
So if you're on Facebook, my name is Adam Kimmell, Kimmell. No relation to Jimmy Kimmel. He's ruined my Google search forever. It's 2 L's, not 1. You can find the locations on Facebook as well. It's where we do all of our marketing and advertising. We have the Madison Seminary in Madison, Ohio, the Fairfield County Infirmary in Lancaster, Ohio. We have the Indiana State Sanatorium in Rockville, Indiana. We have Billy Creek Village also in Rockville, Indiana, and Stark Saloon in Rosedale, Indiana. So those are locations that we operate that you can investigate with your team. If you like family-friendly stuff, follow me on Facebook. If you like this kind of spicy stuff on TikTok, you can follow me under Adam Kimmell. I'll try to go live for at least 2 hours before I get bananaed, as we say, bananaed, for getting too real in our theory. So if you like what you listen to tonight, we do this all the time and we dive deep. And Mary and Shane, I mean this genuinely. It was a pleasure talking with you guys. It is so refreshing to get to talk to people that are also paranormal intellectuals. It was a pleasure every single minute.
The
Thank
pleasure was
you.
ours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
For the people who joined in late, we have a rerun. So the pre-recorded show on Things Network. We will be sharing it in the groups and on our like page as well. And you can find us on YouTube. And I will think about it to put the links in for Adam Kimmell to follow.
Oh, yes. I will.
So
Thank you.
next week is a surprise as well. I like surprises. So you have to see the posts on TikTok and Facebook. So thank you everyone in the comments, especially Cindy, Irene from Japan, Noreen, and Jeff. So see you all next week.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching. We hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe.